You are live.
All right, thank you. Welcome, everybody. This is a regularly scheduled city council workshop. Today is Monday, August 12th. And it is 5:45 PM. Around the table, we have Councilor Leonard, Councilor Dean, Councilor Trumbull, Council Chair Pelletier, Councilor Hawes, Councilor Fish. We are joined by the city manager, Deb Laurie, and our first guest of the evening, Diane Dickerson from the Y. So we are here for, first and foremost, for an update from the Bangor Region Y on your plans and how things are progressing.
Great, thank you so much. And I have a bet with Deb that I can get through this in 20 minutes. So I'm gonna go for it. Am I ready? Do I need-
Putting us on
do I need-
notice.
Right, okay. So this is a quick update of the project. So from the last time that we met, we sent out RFPQs to companies throughout Maine. We only wanted to deal with Maine companies, and it was for both our construction manager and also our architect engineering firm. We had about 15 construction people apply. They all turned in incredible RFPQs. The committee, which is the group that I've presented to you before, they are the people who reviewed all of the applications. They then invited 5 of the 15 to come for a face-to-face presentation. And the same was true for the architect engineering firms. So after all the presentations, Chimbro was selected as the construction manager and SMRT was selected as the AE firm. And they are both doing fabulous jobs. I should add that Dan Miller is here. Who is our owner's rep and is working unbelievably hard with both of these two companies and with the Y, as well as Janine Trimble, who is our president-elect of the board of directors of the Bangor Region YMCA. This is what it could look like. So this is the latest rendering. We are really wanting to try to stick with the heritage of this region. We want to do a lot of stone, a lot of wood. You'll see that kind of throughout the building. This is the head-on version. This is coming from the other direction from downtown. This is the drive-in where this is actually the entrance, so it's not on Main Street. It is behind, it's in the back of the building. So there's a separate entrance for the teen center, a separate entrance for the building itself, and then a separate entrance for our parents. So there you can see the teen center so that the kids can go right in there and have their space. And then this is the entrance for the early childhood education center. So that on the way it's laid out on the site is that, as you can see, it's right on Main Street. That piece that comes out the end, that's the early education center. And then connecting to up on the top, you see natural playgrounds. There will be 3 to 4 playgrounds based upon the ages and the number of kids that we have. We have the license requirements to have separate playgrounds, and then the Talbot Field, and then the open public Talbot Playground Park area.
Yeah, well, you're on that picture. I don't want to touch up,
Yeah.
screw up your 20-minute time.
It's okay.
And one of the big issues was people being able to go from Second Street
Yeah.
down towards the shore. Can they go through that parking lot?
Yep, so there will be, and I have that later on, Dan, because that's one of the city requirements. There's a section on this about city requirements. So there's a sidewalk path that goes along all that green space on the bottom of the driveway. Just right here.
Right here.
Yeah. You can be
Okay.
Vanna.
I'll be Vanna.
So that will go all the way.
Courtney's doing it with a.
So that will go all the way down. Thank you, Courtney. And the actual, that Shaw's actually likes this because they're not coming into the back of Shaw's now where all the big trucks and everything is. So it's a much safer route to do that. This is just a reminder that yes, this is the building itself, but what's most important is what is inside the building. That's what makes the difference. It's far more than just a building. And this comes back to your economic development strategic plan that talks about the Y's vision for its future and activities it's planning to provide as part of its expansion will bring exactly the kinds of recreation and wellness amenities that many residents feel are missing. An expanded, upgraded Y would be a tremendous asset to the community, and provide assets will be critical to improving its livability. So I think that's really key to remember all the way through this. the real critical impact, in our opinion, is that they're doubling the early education center. So we currently serve from 1 to 5 years. We'll now go down to 6 weeks old. And to 5 years, so we're going from 51 babies to 104 babies. We're doubling our on-site before and after school program. We currently are licensed to have about 99. We're going to 200. We're bringing back a youth sports program that was lost when they left the Hammond Street location. This is vitally important. We're serving our teens with a larger free drop-in teen center, which supports both their mental health. It definitely increases their school attendance, work placement, and higher education goals and more. We're increasing our workforce by enabling parents to have childcare and return to the workforce. We're attracting and retaining employees from a variety of industries in the region. And then we're improving health and wellness of people of all ages, helping to combat childhood obesity and many chronic diseases. We are definitely enhancing the neighborhood, and that is a positive economic impact on all of our community. So those are the real top 10 things that we see. This is not the actual, so this is another Y that has just recently been built, but we will have the 2 large swimming pools. One will be for the lap swim colder, one will be a warm for swim lessons and fitness classes and so on. This is, again, I think I've said this 1,000 times, this was number 1 on the research of what people wanted back at the Y, was that full court gymnasium for the younger kids, as well as for our older population, doing a chair yoga class. Lots of different group X studios for all ages, from the young to the old. Much larger cycling studio, lots of wellness space for our chronic disease programs and so on. Cardio, Child Watch is for we babysit for all of our members. If they have children, they bring their babies for 2 hours for free babysitting while they work out. That's our way to encourage wellness. That's the first one was for the younger kids, and this one would be for the older kids. This would also be used for our school age programming. This is the infant care we currently don't have, so we will have multiple rooms that look like this for the babies. Preschool room. This is a STEAM maker space where our after-school kids will be able to learn arts and crafts and build things and so on. A STEAM classroom, much larger teen center, much cooler than what we currently have. And then lots of gathering spots for our members. And I think I've told you all a million times that they come for one thing, but they stay for that socialization. And that is such a key part of somebody's health, is that socialization aspect. And then the Talbot Field that will be used for healthy outdoor activities. This is really cool. So this is our playground area. Is we really, again, wanting to stay with the heritage of our region. So we want to have it be a really natural wood outdoor playground area. So we're working with specialists who actually specialize in this area. Okay, so where we are financially to date, we've raised 28.5 million. We've crossed the 50% mark. Our goal is 55 million. We absolutely refuse to go beyond 55 million, don't we, Dan? So that is the goal. And city requirements. So I've been working closely with Deb, who's outlined what we really need to be doing. 2 parking spaces will be in place that will allow parking for the purpose of Talbot Park for the benefit of the neighbors. So you can see on this layout that there's the park and there will be spaces in that area through there for parking space for anybody that wants to use it. 2 is the Y will upgrade the playground equipment of the city's Talbot Park area.
If you don't ask, then nobody will say yes.
Yes, we will. We will update it. It definitely needs to be updated, so we will update it. 3 is the fenced field space will remain open for public access through designated safety and registration process during non-Y program hours. So we are with our licensed childcare for both the younger kids as well as the school age kids. We're not allowed to have public in the same space that they are in a playground space. So when they are not there, that space will be open for use by the public and also on weekends and so on. The Y will hold neighborhood meetings. I did that. We sent out, Deb gave us the list of 196 neighbors. We sent out an invite to 196 of them. We had 3 meetings scheduled. I showed up. Nobody else showed up. The 3 meetings where we did a virtual, we did in person, and we also did a weekend, thinking that that would be a more convenient time for some people. 2 people RSVP'd, but they didn't show up for their meeting, so I called them afterwards and we had individual lunches with each of those people, and that's James McCormick and John King, who both live in that area. Are they here? No, one of them thought they might come. And they love the project, totally supportive of the project. John did say he hopes that I can work with the city on creating speed bumps on Second Street that he's been asking for, so noted. 5 was that walkway to Shaw's from Second Street, which I showed you. That's gonna go down that path. 6 was acknowledgement that the Y field space will reference the Talbot name. Yes, it will, as you can see. And this is a mock-up, so it won't look exactly like that, but there will be, it will be recognized as Talbot Field throughout. And the documentation that the Y has the blessing of the Talbot family. We have been working on that. It is, we are in the process of working with Bev Eulenhake, who is very close and I think is on virtual, that can ask any questions if anybody wants to, but these are the requests from the Talbot family, and that would be that they would like a Talbot member on our board of directors of the Y. So we currently, all spots are filled. We have a wait list, but we will work with the Talbot family on ensuring that one of the members of their family will be on the board of directors. They also, the back entrance to the fenced area during the times when we can have public. We originally thought that we would like people to have to come into the Y so that we would know who was back there in the field, just to keep everybody safe. They would like it so that people did not have to come through the Y. So we're trying to figure out some sort of a security system and cameras and everything else so that we at least know who is in there and that any of the children that are in there are safe. So we're in the process of working out that. And then they would like to have any events scheduled through the city of Bangor rather than through the Y. So if somebody wants to schedule a birthday party or a wedding in the park or something like that, they would like it to go through the city. So Deb and I are in discussions about that, how that could possibly take place. You want to add to that at all?
I was gonna say, it becomes difficult for us to manage property that we don't have a full control over. I think the references to our event permitting policy. So whereby if we have somebody who wants to do a wedding in Cascade Park, for example, and then we get another one, all we really do is say, you realize there's already a wedding. So we don't actually schedule, it's just from an availability standpoint so that we understand what activities are taking place and that we don't have 2 activities that perhaps don't align. So it will be difficult for us to do that because we don't have control of the property and we don't schedule it for all the other hours, and their hours may change.
So we're working through all of this with the Talbot family, and I know that there is also another request that came up after this presentation was done by noon today. We had to get it to the city. And that is that and I think Kara and Deb can talk further about this, but it's that the Talbot family would like another spot dedicated to the Talbot family name from this particular site as well. So they want all of these things as well, but then in addition to another site. The action requested from us and the next step is the deeding of Talbot Field to the Y. The discontinuance and conveyance of Davis Court and the end of First Street, and then releasing the ARPA funds. And that it included in the package that just shows you Davis Court. And then that little purple is the end of First Street.
It's important to note that all of that property that surrounds this is either Talbot Park. I think it's Talbot Park on the backside, or it's owned by the Y. So the only property owner affected is the Y. And it was always envisioned that we would need to discontinue this portion of the road.
And that is it. How about that?
Nice.
Let's see, where do I want to go?
What questions do you have for Diane? Counselor Trumbull?
Well, I think you've been very good working with the Talbot family. I mean, when we named the park captain, they originally approached the city and just wanted like, I think a marker or something at their house where he grew up and they lived. And I said, well, why don't we rename Second Street Park? And we did that. And I mean, we named, I think renaming another section seems appropriate, but for doing these other things is having the city do it. I mean, they don't own the park. It's just named in her dad's honor. And I think you've been very reasonable with these accommodations we're making, but some of them seem unreasonable for their role in the park. An honor we bestowed on her dad, who's still alive. And I think there was a reasonable naming that other area after him, but some of these other requests seem like they don't kind of make sense. And they don't own the park. It's just the honorary, we named it after him as a great honor for the great, things he's done for our community.
And we definitely want to keep the Talbot name very prevalent on that field. And the cool part of that is too, is that we will be able to educate all of our kids and our members about the history and the importance of that name. Who does? Oh, Bev. How do?
You wanna let her speak?
Sure. Oh, sorry,
Not your meeting.
There we go. Hey there, folks. I don't know how to.
Bev.
Go ahead, Council.
Before we go to Bev, I want to see, are there other counselors who have questions? That's awesome. Okay.
Okay. So I've been working with the Talbot family. Thank you for allowing me to speak just a little bit. I understand that I understand your concerns, Dan, and that it feels like a lot. I think it's important to recognize where they're coming from. Both Gerald and now Rachel have worked very hard to ensure that there are spaces within the state of Maine, first of all, that no longer have negative connotations to the names, whether that be because they're named after someone who did some pretty heinous things in the past, or are using sort of negative names. You think of Squaw Mountain, for example. So they've worked very hard on that. And now we're looking at the first piece of property that was named after an African-American man in the city of Bangor that I know of. Maybe there are others, but now we're asking them almost immediately after, or at least it feels like that to them, immediately after naming it after Gerald, that it be taken away. And they're just concerned of what that image is. And so it's a much larger concern about the statement to the state of Maine than it is about it being named after Gerald Talbot. So I just want to put that perspective out there. Working very hard to get them to get to a spot that they feel comfortable. But at the moment, we don't have sign off yet. But that's also why they are looking for a different spot to have the name, because we're taking this space, and although the name Talbot Field will still be there, it is not technically a public space.
Right.
Privately owned.
Thank you.
So have they got a spot in mind, that other area that's gonna remain public? Is that what they had in mind, or is there a specific spot? Because I mean, that seems appropriate to me.
They would like the current park that's there on Second Street, because that is that's essentially the old family neighborhood. They'd love for that to stay
Right.
as Talbot Park. They don't want that to leave. But they would like something in addition. It's a yes and request.
So Talbot Park will remain where we're giving we're improving the playground equipment. So that does remain and that remains open to the public. So it's just that field space that now becomes Talbot Field that is also used for Y programming for, 400 kids a day, plus then open for public use when the kids aren't there.
Just a quick follow.
Yeah.
So obviously the one thing that came up today or the latest request isn't something the Y can address. We need to, I don't have a problem with that. I think we can find something that'd be very appropriate to honor Jerry and the Talbot family. So I don't have any problem with it. I think we can definitely come up with something, fulfill that.
Counselor Dean?
My question is just, are they looking for more land or a plaque or a statue? Do we have any idea what their ask is?
No idea.
Just something.
I would say that it could be just about anything in the city. It would be a public landmark of some kind, whether that be a park or some other kind of landmark, I think would be appropriate.
Other questions for the Y? I think the only question for me is, timing is very important when it comes to ARPA dollars and the
Mhm.
use of those dollars. They have to be obligated by the end of this year and then spent by the end of 2026. We've been asking all of our award recipients to work with the city manager to ensure that there is a concrete timeline and plan in place to assure that those funds are spent. We don't have to send a single one back to Washington.
100%. We are very well aware of that. And believe me, we do not want to send one dime back, but it is, we break ground in 2025. It will be completed in fourth quarter 2026.
And they have expended these funds.
We have.
So they have been expending privately raised dollars at this point to pay some of the architecture and engineering services as well as property acquisition. So they have obviously an allocation from the county commissioners as well as from the city. So until she came back, she'd like to gnaw my arm off, I'm not gonna lie. But until she came back, I said, not willing to release any funds until the council, if you're comfortable moving forward with this and us working with the Talbot family, we'll continue to do that so that we can move this forward. And what Diane would like to hear is that if you're all comfortable with where we are in it right now, is we go ahead and start releasing the funds.
Counselor Trimble?
I'm good with that, but the only thing I see as a hang up is that fourth issue. I don't know if you're working with Bev, I'd be glad to volunteer to work to find something appropriate.
Well, I think, Debbie has asked Tracy for a list of potential options that I think the council should consider together as a group.
Yep. But it sounds like folks are willing and we could go ahead and move forward with the ARPA allocation at this point.
I don't see any objection.
Okay. That makes her happy by it. Makes her happy with
Incredibly
You have
happy.
a question, Counselor House?
I do. So when you've tasked Tracy to bring you a list of potentials, how long is that gonna go on before you can actually say to the family, we've got this to offer here?
I think what we'll do is internally is we'll look at a couple of options and I may reach out to a couple of counselors and just say, hey, what do you think? Just to get a sense of where people are. And then we can circle back with Bev and see if we can't round out a complete package to kind of hopefully allow us to all move forward.
I would just hate to see that they
No,
are not, that they're gonna be out there and things are gonna be happening and they.
no, but it sounds like
Yeah.
Bev has a little bit more insight. I mean, this
Mhm.
afternoon, it was kind of like, oh, this is calculating. It's like, okay, so
Okay.
it's been about 5 hours, maybe 6.
That's good.
Yep,
Okay,
Thoughts?
all right,
anything else
yeah,
needed from me?
yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for the update.
Thank you
Thank you,
so much.
Diane.
We appreciate
you.
all of you very much.
Thanks. 24 minutes, pretty good.
We threatened her.
Next on the agenda, we have a discussion on the proposed use of the opioid settlement funds.
Hi, thanks for having us this evening. We're pretty excited to share the idea that we have, at least the start of an idea, the seeds of an idea on how to use that opiate settlement money. And I know that you have received the memo, and probably have taken some time to read it. So I'm not going to go word for word, but maybe to focus on some of the things that really, some of the important aspects that we want to get across to you this evening as you think about how we want to move forward. So, the memo starts off with a little bit of history of where the opiate settlement funds came from. We're very fortunate here in the city of Belfast to receive, a significant. Oh my God, I live in Belfast. Here in Bangor.
I'm like,
It's been a Monday. And I think the funds are, amazing to have here, but I think that we also want to remember that those funds came at the expense of a lot of trauma in our community. And we want to make sure that we honor that money in a way with a lot of compassion and a lot of mindfulness on how we want to make sure that we use the money to really bring our community together to heal and to move onward. So that's sort of the spirit of our proposal. So to go into a little bit about the proposal, and when I say they're seeds, they really are seeds, because what we've done is taken a really strong public health approach to the proposal, meaning that one of the key elements in public health is community participation. And so we want to make sure that the community has a time to come together, the impact community that we want to work with, and be able to provide feedback and insight so that we are using the evidence and the science that's out there, but in a way that is adapted really well for our community. So the funds, we have them for 18 years. And so that means we really have an opportunity, as Jamie has often said a couple of times that I really like to hang on, is that we have the opportunity to help impact a generation with these funds. And so one of the things that we talked about internally is that we wanted to avoid duplication, meaning when the state puts out the RFPs or requests for funding for how they're going to use their money, we wanted to make sure that we were doing something a little bit different, because we could always apply for those funds if we wanted to. So we wanted to make sure that we weren't duplicating what was sort of already happening. And we also wanted to come into this, again, with this idea of like 18 years of being able to impact a generation. We thought this would be an opportunity to not just give a little bit of money to a bunch of projects, but to really dig in deep with one specific program. So as the proposal sort of outlines here, the goal is to work with kids and families to provide them with the tools they need to thrive. And, these are families who've been impacted by substance use disorder in some way, whether it's grandparents who are taking care of their grandchildren because the parents are not able to do so, or it's, generations that have experienced some type of trauma from the situation. There are going to be components of the program that would be open to all families. And then there'll be parts, a little bit more concentrated efforts that would be mostly available to those families that we want to work specifically with. So some of the key elements is in public health, one of the most important strategies is that we use evidence. We're working in a topic that doesn't always have a lot of evidence. So we want to use what's best out there, adapt it for Bangor, be a little innovative, because with that innovation, we can actually have an opportunity to contribute to the evidence. That's why another part of this proposal is partnering with an academic institution to do really robust evaluation, and for us to be able to say what we're doing is working. If it's not working, where we may need to make some shifts, and where could this program be adapted in other areas. We see the Bangor School Department as an important partner, and equally so, the caregivers and parents being in leadership positions, again, working with our academic research partner, that community participatory piece where we're getting input from parents and caregivers and from community partners. We want to identify and engage mentors. What our staff has heard a lot by those parents and families that have been impacted, part of their healing is to be mentors, whether they've lost a family member. And through their lived experience, there can be empowerment, not just to share their story, but really to be mentors for others in our community. The idea is that we want to focus on thriving, not just surviving, and bringing really a sense of community with the work. We're really proud of this proposal. I think it's really demonstrate the years of work that the public health staff have worked in the community, listening, observing, caring, and serving the people of Bangor. I'm also really proud of the proposal because I think it also demonstrates why we have a local health department. You know, having a local health department means that you've got some skilled people and an approach that really puts the community at the center of it. And so I think this is just a really great opportunity that we've got a city, Bangor, who's going to be receiving these funds, and we have a public health way to address that, again, through looking at evidence, community participatory, evaluation, and just really a deep compassion for the people of Bangor. And really today, what we're hoping is that you give us a little bit of the thumbs up to kind of make this come, provide a little bit more information, context, and detail. But we didn't want to get too far without getting your feedback, getting your comments, and sort of getting your approval. Jamie, did I miss anything?
No, I don't think so.
Thanks.
Questions and comments? Counselor Trimble?
I'm very excited. I mean, it sounds like very good plan. This is the first I've heard of it, the first I've heard of anything to do. We've talked about the opiate funds for a long time. Not ready tonight to say, yeah, we should spend all of the money on this. And I think aren't we committed some of I thought the needle cleanup money.
$30,000 a year.
Per year, right? Yeah, so.
Well, and it's,
Yeah.
I think Jen's working with them as well to make sure that it's reflective of the efforts. So it may go a little bit further,
Yeah.
a little bit longer.
So, yeah, I mean, I need to see a budget, how this breaks down, everything. I mean, I think initially, I think it makes sense. I don't know if it's 100% of what's left after the needle cleanup makes sense, but something along these lines definitely makes sense to me.
Counselor Hess?
I like this. It's comprehensive, but yet it looks like there's room for you and your group to, if something else happened and you needed to shift a little bit and add something else in there, I hope not, but you never know. There's room for that, so it's solidified, but yet it's fluent to a degree. And I think when we're dealing with these types of concerns and issues, there has to be some fluidity to the plan. So I'm anxious to see more of the forming of it. What is it really going to look like? And be able to walk us through a little small piece or an example or something that somebody's going to get money for. And then, as Councilor Trumbull said, I think we as council just have to be cautious that we don't keep that amount of money in the back of our head and keep saying to the city manager, oh, we could use opioid money for that. So everybody's on the same page, but I do like the prospect. Looks good.
Counselor Leonard?
I like this plan. Because I would like to see a thorough thought going to all of these dollars that are going to be spent over the next decade plus for this. I think it would be really appropriate to, and I can't remember if we talked about this in depth at council yet, but to talk about potentially even having some either members of the community or even members of city staff or in public health to actually be on a opioid settlement committee, so that instead of us, the council, having to always go through this process of figuring out what we want to do with with these opioid settlements monies, that we can have subject matter experts or people with lived experiences or people that actually are in these communities to be on a committee to oversee this plan as well. I think that would probably really help shape this plan further years out, but I do like what you have right here.
Okay, thank you. I think that also feeds into the idea of one of the things that we've learned from a national perspective is to be completely transparent. I mean, of course, we want to do that as a city, but particularly with these opiate settlement funds, it's not a given that it's being used nationwide for public health efforts at the community level. And so I think, Bangor could really shine in that way, that it's being used.
Counselor Fournier?
Do we know where the state is focusing their money?
So Jamie can probably provide a little bit more update on that, but they did release an RFP with some of the funds to go towards treatment, recovery, and harm reduction. So they had not included really sort of prevention in this way. And that's where some of was helping to maybe fill in some of that gap of, there's funds out there that an RFP can respond to for others in our community can respond to those RFP dollars. But here we can do something a little bit different. Jamie, I don't have any other updates.
Yeah, there's an ad hoc task force right now, from the Maine Recovery Council looking at, suggestions for prevention interventions. So, the Maine Recovery Council already asked for people to submit their proposals, as Jen said, for harm reduction and treatment and recovery. And the prevention, some prevention folks on that council said they wanted to put a task force together to look at an array of prevention interventions that could be, that they would like to see. So that's happening right now. I'm actually sitting on that body. We meet for another 2 more months, I think. And then I'm not sure of what the timeline is, but they will eventually ask for proposals for the state recovery dollars.
So there'll be, we'll be able to request money from the state
In theory.
in theory.
I
Yeah.
mean, we also have, I guess the optics of that would also be that we have a whole pot for ourselves in the
Right.
city, so I
Yeah.
don't know how.
Yeah, no, I get that part. To me, it was more about treatment and recovery. And maybe because I have kind of lived this a bit. Not to say that there's anything wrong with prevention, because there's a lot to be said for that, but there's still a lot of people out there that still need the help.
Absolutely. And, we would be happy to support any organization that's doing treatment and recovery if they pursue some of the RFP dollars that came, that they wanted to apply to for the state. This is hard. These are hard decisions on how to spend this money because it could be spent in so many different ways. And that we would be the last ones to disagree with you that there's enough out there. There isn't.
Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah,
And we are
Okay,
open
with
to
the-
other ideas.
yeah, no, having read this, it was all for on prevention, and I was not leaning that direction. But if there's money coming from the state, that helps me a little bit. But Bangor has suffered a lot, and what we can do for recovery and treatment, to me, would make a lot of sense too.
I think that the way we've done a lot of work over time with the school department, and these same themes keep coming up. And it feels like every year we lose more kids and lose more kids and lose more kids. And so, and families. And we thought this would be a way to throw everything we could at something. Year after year, we're asked in the prevention field to always do more with less. It happened again this year. We have budget cuts, yet our contract is asking for additional deliverables. And there's no way. And this was like one shot at being able to go narrow and deep. And my hope is that this will be such an awesome project that we will almost have to turn down funding. Like people will be wanting to fund this and work with us because we will be creating research and having, having outcomes that are good, that are positive, that are working. I'm stumbling over my words, but I think that that's our vision for this is something really grand and big. And it's the only time that it's our only shot at that. This will be the last chance that we have to do something like this.
So when I think of prevention, I go back to the days on DARE. And I know
Yeah, we
that's
don't wanna
probably
do
not a
that.
good example, but the intention was really good in the beginning. And then it just kind of went elsewhere. And that's what I don't want to have happen.
No, and one of the downfalls of DARE was that it was not an evidence-based program. It didn't have the science behind it, or even the community wanting it. We can look back and there's a lot of mistakes that have been made in public health. I think a lot of people would say that would be in the top 10. And you're absolutely right, we would not want, and that's why we would want anything to be reporting back to the city or a committee or whatever it might be, to say, this is where we're at right now for evaluation, and this is what it's looking like, and be open and honest about that, so we would make any changes that we would need to.
Counselor Trumbull?
Just this question maybe for the city solicitor, but in those revenue projections about $3.5 million that we with the city would get, did that include the settlement from the Sackler family? Because that one's up and that's not happening right now. Was that part of the Sackler settlement, part of those, that projection? Oh,
Counselor Frisch?
That was a question. I tried to read the link of the funding and it was very all over the place and hard to follow this pipeline of how it funnels down to potentially around $3.5 million of benefit, I guess earmarked for Bangor over 18 years, or about what, 195,000 a year or so. And so of that money, is this the money that you're making this proposal? Is that what you're looking for? And, you know, in reading this, I know Councilor Fournier was, his focus was, help in recovery and support. And I agree, but I also think that, I also, in my family, I've actually lost 2 cousins, that died from, substance abuse. And in each one had a different avenue of getting there. But I think if there had been more prevention, that end story might not have happened. So somehow we really need to educate and somehow try to intercept these issues before they take hold and end up with a poor end result. And at the same time, we've had, you know, from the late 90s, 1996 or so, when the city council before us had some people coming in to advocate for methadone clinics to help. And at the time, we had 7 patients, I think, in the greater Bangor area. And I know that it's not just the methadone clinics that came and attracted a lot of people from elsewhere, but a lot of dynamics from the medical and pharmaceuticals, and just, you know, kind of the perfect storm. So I'm just, you know, I would like to see something a little more specific. This kind of money to help the issue we have in Bangor is great. But I think that prevention is very important to try to circumvent the issue, and also to make sure that whatever programs we have are not attracting, as the mistakes we've made before, so much outside, you know, sort of a fallout surprise that now we're dealing with in Bangor, but somehow more control, so that whatever program we come up with and the benefit is really supporting and helping Bangor. And I know Bangor is a service city, but our sister neighborhoods, and not someone that's, you know, coming in from elsewhere just for the service and then ended up by default out on our streets, or by default out there for us to take care of. So this is exciting. It's definitely a lot of money. And I do think that we also need some outside expert input about how to best use this to benefit all of these categories. So, I guess I would like to have a little more information and a little more specifics on the plan.
Absolutely. We just wanted to make sure we were heading in the right direction. So, yeah, definitely more detail. I think the other thing that I want to point out to get to your point, Councilwoman, is that some of the core issues here aren't just substance use prevention, but it's also around addressing isolation, addressing stigma, addressing some of those core root factors that contribute to the issue. We don't want to throw a DARE education campaign at the issue, but really to dig deep and say, what are some of the contributing and driving factors that are leading to trauma in our community?
Other comments? So I think, Strip,
No, I was here to answer Dan's question.
or did you have something to add?
Well, I was just, Dan had asked a question, and I just want to know the Sackler. So I don't believe that was part
It
of
is
this.
not one of them.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. So I think the idea of impacting a generation is a really bold vision. I love that. That's where you went with that, because we have spent a lot of the ARPA dollars on sort of the end result of substance use disorder and, helping people find recovery, whether that's contributing to sober living homes or funding more recovery beds or all of those things that we've been doing. And so the idea of sort of stopping it before it starts. I'm very pleased to see that that's the focus of this. I agree with the other counselors. I would like to see some more specifics. I think I was in the very first class of DARE, the very first year it launched at Mary Snow School. I seem to remember that. But you know, how would you get to your point, some of the social determinants of health and some of the predictors of people's drive towards substance use disorder? And then are there other programs similar to this in the United States that might be guideposts or inspiration for this work? What can we learn from them? I also a big fan of your data-driven approach to this and making sure that what is built is doesn't just feel good or sound good on a t-shirt, but actually works.
Absolutely.
What else? Councilor Fish?
And I think I can't seem to find it, but I read it earlier, sometimes just a day or two after a while. It's like, you forget a little bit, but I think I read that it was going to be a focus for focusing on diversity. But I'd really like to have that term taken out, because I don't think that abuse, opioid or any other abuse issue that people have is designated to a particular group. I think it should be inclusive to everyone.
That's what they're.
And not just to, a diverse group. I think drugs really isn't prejudice, it gets everybody. So I think rather than just trying to earmark funds for a specific group, I think that it's across the board. I just would like to kind of see that word gone away. It should be for everyone. Anyone that needs the help.
Yeah, I appreciate that approach. I think our definite, view on this was on inclusivity of everyone. In public health, since when we talk about diversity, sometimes we also recognize that there are some groups that experience bigger barriers than other groups. And so in that idea of inclusivity, we want to make sure that barriers are for everybody is broken down in order to be able to access.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
City manager updates.
Yes. Let's see, a few updates here. So, public restrooms, our engineering department has actually reviewed, the schematics utilized to construct them, that were prepared by a third-party firm. They are not ADA compliant. So our staff is, reviewing that and meeting with the actual contractor, and that we'll have to go back to the group that engineered it, but we do have 2 units that have yet to be delivered, so we'll ensure those units are in compliance with ADA. We will deliver those to sites that currently have units, be able to remove those, retrofit them and get them back so that we, the products that we buy are in accordance with the RFP that we issued. We are also have been experiencing some issues with removing of the syringe disposal boxes from a couple of the units. So what we've done is we've moved and pivoted to the metal boxes that are actually on the signposts. We will be working with them at the same time to retrofit those and try to secure them more securely to the interior of the metal structures. Public safety bond order. So we have a bond order on tonight's agenda. It is for first reading. There's several bond orders. All of the bond orders, with the exception of the one for the public training facility, are reflective of either recently adopted council budget or the committee discussion as we had last week for the school. The public safety training facility will require voter approval. Voter approval is set by charter. It's based on a single capital expenditure. And if it exceeds a certain dollar amount, it requires voter approval. Recognizing that this project requires voter approval and recognizing that the council intends to support it, what we've done for staff is we've added in essence a 20% contingency to ensure that if it is approved by the voters, that the city would have adequate funds to be able to complete the project in the coming year. And just as a reminder, the building is, it will be used to store some apparatus and equipment when it's not in use. It will have, built-in training props. So some of the training are throwing ground ladders, hose line, advancement, forcible entry. It will allow for year-round training inside in a controlled environment. It will help reduce some out of service for some of our apparatus, as they'll be able to raise the ladder and cab to service them inside, rather than having to wait for good weather outside. It'll also allow us to do hiring throughout the year. We don't have to wait for the Cross Insurance Center. We'll actually have a facility on site. We can actually use it for physical fitness training, and it would also include a classroom that accommodates at least 50 students, which will allow us to hold a variety of trainings that actually allow us to conduct multiple trainings at one time, which is a change and something we haven't been able to do. So that was the only one that's a little bit different from what had been previously discussed with the council. And the only reason is we wanted to ensure that adequate funds available to invest in that facility if it's approved by the voters.
Councilor House?
So when this is on the agenda,
Yes.
what we are approving,
Yes.
sending it
So,
to the voters?
yep, so this is first reading for all of your bond orders this
Mhm.
week. And this is actually first reading for the other item that's coming from the charter, correct?
Yes.
Dave Sebchuk, yes, with a signature. So what you do is you have an order first. At the next meeting, then there will be items placing these on the agendas. So this is just first reading for the bond order. Every bond order requires a public hearing regardless at the council level. The council would still need to adopt it. I think it demonstrates your support, and then further you'd have to place the item on the ballot
Okay,
this fall.
just wanted to make sure.
All right. The next thing is, I just wanted to talk about, we are continuing to work to coordinate efforts of our community partners to really come to an effective mapping solution, for the challenges of the individuals living within the encampment behind Hope House. What we also recognize is that, the recent events related to the safety of individuals out there are concerning and have to be addressed. The fact that we have had to dispatch a special response team from the police department for significant drug dealing is problematic. The conversation that's surrounding weapons, it's a safety issue for the individuals who are doing the work they need to do to move forward. So as we finalize the mapping out of a complete strategy, there are a couple of interim steps that we'd like to begin taking. we would like to begin with limiting new entry to the encampment. What we are finding is that if people, some people will show up and become very acclimated to the area, and I think in order to be able to address the needs of the folks on site, we need to limit new access. We also would like to begin that if we do know that there are some, and we know it from multiple sources, that there are individuals who are choosing not to engage, and there are still likely activity that is creating a safety risk for others in that area. And we will have a group separate from, not our outreach partners, comprised of a multitude of city staff, going out, circling up with folks, checking in, seeing where can we, here are some alternatives. Is this something we can work with? Trying to get folks to engage one more time. But if folks are unwilling to at least participate with city staff, if not outreach, then I believe we need to ask them to vacate the site. And I think we do that to protect the individuals who remain on site. We'll offer options to help facilitate that. We've been very creative with any number of individuals. But it takes a long time to move one person through the entire process. So I guess I just wanted to get some feedback and thoughts and see how people react to those initial steps.
Councilor House?
I think you have to start somewhere, but I think we've got a new class coming into the university very soon. We've heard from parents, we've heard from students, and we've heard from the school that they're scared to go to their vehicles at night because it's too close to camp. So, I think I'm just gonna say it, we've been really lenient with these people for a really long time. We've tried to provide all the resources we can. We've tried to get people out there to engage with them. The staff has gone out. We've had other people go out. The police department's out there on a regular basis. I think we've done all we can, and now we're just gonna have to really be very firm and come up with some solid things that are gonna say, okay, if you're not willing to do this, then you need to be gone in X number of hours. And where they go, you can tell, they know the resources. All of these people are like long-term residents now. There's very few out there that are just running in today saying, "Ooh, I need a place to stay." And that's scary. It's an unhealthy atmosphere out there for them, for new people coming in, for workers. I just think we have to do something. And we need to do it sooner rather than later. We've got a lot of things going on out there.
And I will say the vast majority of individuals are engaged with outreach, and those supports will continue to be in place. We just know that there are some who are not participatory. We know from a multitude of sources that it's likely that there are still significant illegal and illicit behaviors that are putting the health and safety of others at risk. And I believe it is incumbent upon us to protect the life and safety of the individuals who are trying to work through their individual situation. And that's the area. I think outreach does that through that engagement on a daily basis. For those that aren't, we're gonna have a separate group of city employees going out and trying to engage in a different way. And offering opportunities and talking about options and whatever potential solutions there may be. We have an individual, I won't get into it, but we've got a group who has family and friends, they just are having a hard time getting there. We're gonna help facilitate that, but that doesn't come overnight. So we've been very open. Last week, we got, I think there were 2 or 3 individuals, we were actually able to get into detox. And now coming out of detox, how are we going to ensure that there's a safe place for them to stay? So it runs the gamut. I'm not talking about the vast number of individuals. What I'm talking about is we cannot continue to ask a core group of outreach to help more and more individuals. It's making that work more difficult, and it's diverting their opportunity to spend the time that they need with the individuals. There are other resources that we can direct folks to, and we will always give folks options. But in the end, there are times that for the health and safety of
Mhm.
all, we need to ask folks to make a different choice.
So follow-up question.
Yes,
Go ahead.
thank you. So when you say you're going to not allow new entries, does that mean you're posting the area like we did at Valley Avenue?
So I think what we'll do, when we posted Valley Avenue, what we said was we're having a closing date. We haven't gotten to the point of setting a closing date. We're working diligently towards that. But until we get there, I think it's, what we do know is we understand the structures that are on site. We understand, we have a fairly decent handle on the number, on the individuals that are there. And what we will do is we will be making routine passes through to make sure if there's a new structure, we'll be saying, hey,
Mhm.
you know, you weren't here yesterday, what's going on, what's your name, who are you talking to? Cause we don't ever wanna make sure, we don't ever wanna put somebody who's working with a different outreach worker who isn't us, that we may not be aware of. But we can help facilitate those conversations, but we will be engaging with people basically on a daily basis.
Counselor Dean?
Can you clarify the illegal behavior? Are you talking about the
So-
drug use or are you talking about dealing and
Dealing.
violence?
Dealing,
So the drug use is not the illegal behavior. That
So-
is, that's been accepted and allowed there.
so
But the
If-
dealing and the violence and the nature of the people that are coming in enforcing
correct,
different issues
correct.
is what we're addressing.
We have assaults on a regular basis out there. I can't say particularly what they lead from, but what I will say is the population is very leery and hesitant of sharing information. And understandably so. It could be a fear of retaliation. It could be they still have to survive where they are. And it's understandable. It could be a fear of law enforcement, whether it's been a past interaction or whether it's just the fear. Perhaps they have outstanding warrants of their own and they don't want that to impact them. So there are any number of reasons why individuals are uncomfortable reporting in a way that we could actually address the crime being committed.
Sue brought up the point, excuse me, Counselor Hawes brought up the point that the students are afraid of these people, but we don't know that they're afraid of the actual dealers or if it's just a harmless person who may have had a little bit too much of something. I don't know how we can distinguish between the two
We
when
can,
you're talking about people that are uncomfortable with a certain set of
Correct.
people,
it is,
which is unfortunate because they're not all the same.
correct,
Some
it
are
is not,
perfectly harmless.
that's correct. And discomfort isn't what the issue we're trying to get at. We're trying to get to the illicit illegal behavior. We're trying to ensure the safety of the individuals who remain there. There becomes, you know, I'm not gonna speak to what anyone would have to do to survive.
Mhm.
I mean, none of us know what we would do, but what I do believe is incumbent upon us to improve the safety. And the way to do that is to be in there to limit new entry. The reason we're back in with an SRT team is because when you take a large drug dealer out, the next one moves in. And that will continue. It happened last year. And it will continue, and we need to stop it by limiting new entry.
But is there no fear? I mean, they just keep coming in. Why do they come here? Why do they think that Bangor is a place that they can get away with this?
So I don't believe it's all that uncommon for the criminal element to find that a homeless encampment provides some amount of cover. If I could speak to what the criminal mind was, I guess I
Yeah.
would.
Counselor Fish?
I'm very frustrated with the subject because for 9 months, we've had a plan. We were gonna not allow new people in or have a registration, we were gonna have RVs taken out, we were gonna have a big handle. I think we as a city have have a greater responsibility than to have allowed it to get to where it's at. And now, it's no secret that it's known by the criminals that it's a safe place for them. And now it's not a safe place for the people that are vulnerable and are homeless and that we're trying to reach out. And now it's not even safe for our outreach workers. And, we've kind of bungled it, we've just kind of blown this and we're not handling it right. We should have I know it's complex, but at the same time, for 9 months, we've been saying we were gonna have better control about what's going on in there. And we have less control now and more violence now than ever. So, you know, we've already said, yes, let's limit the people coming in. Maybe shutting the encampment altogether isn't the answer. We're always gonna have homeless. We always need outreach. So maybe having a place where we can at least try to have these vulnerable people in one place where we can have outreach. Maybe that's a better solution than closing it completely, but at the same time, we can't allow the criminals in there.
No, we can't.
And the RVs in there and the drug dealings and, you know, the drug dealers know it's a place to go and now it's rippling into the community. And somehow we have to have a more proactive action plan. I know it's not that simple, but at the same time, for 9 months, we've gotten nowhere that I've been on the board. So I'd like to just see some action.
Counselor Fournier?
So just kind of piggyback up of Councilor Fish, I just thought we had already taken a stance regarding lack of engagement from those individuals.
You know,
You have my full support moving
Okay.
forward.
My questions are on housing options for people. Where are we with the Pine Tree Inn? When will that be online? How are we doing at getting more access to vouchers and places for people to actually go? Because I agree with you that Evan Campman is out of control. It's a
Yep.
dangerous place, but people need to go somewhere.
Yep.
So what are we doing in terms of
Yeah.
making sure that there's a safe place for people to move into?
Yeah, so the Pine Tree Inn is, the construction fence is up.
Great.
They have told me it is a 3 to 4 month construction time period, so that puts us into the middle. Kind of the depths of winter. There's a 43 unit building. So there's an opportunity there. We continue to house a couple of folks every week. There are a number of folks out there who have housing vouchers. And it's about making sure that we are working with the other housing providers in the city to make sure we gain access. So in the last week and in the last, 2 months or 3 months, we've housed 4 or 5 families or households right from out there. And almost half of them are returning. They're returning because the living situation isn't kind of working for them. So they're actually transitioning out of the housing appropriately, but there's no place else to go. And another is just not having the supports it needs to be successful and not willing to adapt. So they're actually being evicted yet again. They'll be out in 7 days. It goes to show that case management wait lists are 6 to 8 weeks out. So what's happening is PATH and the outreach workers are actually following individuals when they housed, trying to keep them stable until they can hand it off to a case manager. One of the grant opportunities that we're looking at, I believe Main State Housing is going to be issuing an RFP for grant funds. And sometime towards the end of this week. And we're likely coming back to talk to you about what we would like to apply for as a city. For housing navigation and for housing stabilization services specifically. Outreach needs to be able to know that if they've got somebody housed, there's somebody to hand the individual off to so that they can go and provide the next handout. So vouchers are available on a limited basis. We have a number of individuals we've housed some people through GA. We've housed people in a number of ways. So we just have to be more creative. And we're committed to that. So I don't believe it would never be our intention, somebody who's engaged, actively participating in the way that they can, to ask those individuals to leave unless they are engaging in behavior that is creating a risk to others, a substantial risk to others. But we do have, the problem is as the summer months, the encampment grows. And that's what happened again this summer. And what we'd like to do is to work to address the people that we've been actively working with, prevent the individuals from arriving from new areas. I believe it's become known as, if you're unhoused, you can go here and it'll all be fine. Nobody will bother you, and we need to change that narrative. It's incumbent upon every one of us to help individuals remain housed. And remain closer to supports, natural supports that they have. It may be that, we look to see is there somebody in your family or friend circle that we can help provide an opportunity to go back into housing in a different way? It may not be permanent housing as you'd like, but it gets you inside and it gets you safe. There are shelter beds here and there. The shelters are relatively full. There isn't always an opportunity to get somebody in. And like I said, last week, I think there were 2 people who went to detox. So that was a win.
Speaking of shelters,
Mhm.
where are we with Hope House? What do we know?
So what we know is that they are working through the process internally. I believe there is an agreement they're looking to see if it can translate to. I met with Lori Dwyer earlier this week, and I'm meeting with Lori Dwyer and the Preble Street operators later this month. I think they would like to come forward together to provide an update to you, and they're looking at doing that in the first meeting in September. They believe they'll have all of the details that they can share at that point.
Are we, from a financial perspective, do we believe that there's gonna be a funding gap that they're gonna be asking the city to try to fill, or
I have not heard of it
we
yet.
don't know?
I have not heard of it yet, but when I had met with Preble Street back along, my initial meetings with them is that they were pretty clear that there always had to be a fundraising component to operating a shelter. No different than the fundraising component that they have for all of the other shelters that they operate in Southern Maine. So they recognize that as a need, and that was factored into any decision that they would make. So, yeah.
My last question on that is, with the ARPA dollars that we've allocated to Hope House,
Yes.
some of that is going to re-expand the
Yes.
shelter back to its pre-COVID capacity. Is there any possibility now with a new operator to sort of reconfigure the use of those dollars to provide even more beds, or to be able to take and increase the capacity of the shelter even further?
Your ordinance limits shelters to 70 beds.
Okay, thank you.
I did talk about the ARPA dollars, which is why I'm meeting with both parties later this month. I believe they've continued to do some of the initial work as far as the layout with their project manager. I guess I just wanted to be able to assure the council that, that both groups agree. It's great that one group thinks this is the thing to do, but if it's going to transition to another, I just wanted to make sure that both parties agree that this is the appropriate reconfiguration.
Other updates?
Just a reminder, Councilor Schaefer is not here this evening, so her items will need to assign to somebody else. The good news is there are no talking ones for her. So however that needs to happen. And Councilor Dean, I believe, City Solicitor Subcheck shared with you, we need to remove one item from the consent agenda.
Right. Is
And
that removed before all consent agenda or just before that particular
I
consent?
would go ahead and move it at the beginning.
Yes.
After public comment?
Yeah, Lisa Goodwin will talk about, we'll move to the consent agenda and we'll give her a heads up that at that point to look to you.
Okay.
Okay?
You want a motion to go into executive session?
Ready when you are.
That's why you were trying to get my paper. I'm like, what are you doing?
So we move into executive session. One MRSA 4056D, Teamsters. Bangor Police Support, and MRSA 4056D, IAFF, Bangor Firefighter.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second, roll call vote, Councilor Fournier,
Yes.
Councilor Leonard,
Yes.
Councilor Dean.
Yes.
Councilor Trumbull.
Yes.
Councilor Hall.
Yes.
Councilor Fish.
Yes.
I'm a yes, unanimous.